to WooNews TV, where we bring spiritual concepts into the mainstream to make them more relatable and applicable to everyone. And in this way, you're able to create a more fulfilling, peaceful life and help others to do the same. Today, we're going to talk about spirituality and fashion, which you might think is a stretch, but you will see that it's really not. Today, I'm very excited about my guest, Joy Lee, who is a fashion designer. Now, why am I having fashion on a spiritual channel? Well, let me tell you why. As we know, the purpose of a spiritual journey, a spiritual practice, is to release your fears and heal your trauma and release the parts of you that don't serve you anymore, to open your heart, to expand your capacity for empathy. And all of these things raise our vibration, raise our frequency, so that we are then closer to the frequency of the source of God, creator, whatever you call that. Fashion can also play a role in this if we are more mindful about it and have a more spiritual approach to fashion. We can do that. So Joy's background, she first started in fashion as Liz Claiborne's fit model.
Yes.
Then she was creative director and senior designer at Guess. And in 2007, she started creating her own line called Joy Lee, which she started initially offering in her storefront called Studio Joy Lee.
Yeah.
And now she has her own studio in home, and she also does custom design when she has the time. Her stuff is amazing, as you can see behind us. One of the reasons I wanted Joy on here, not only because I adore her and I love her clothes, but it's because two of the things she wrote in her mission statement, in her vision and her mission statement, and I want to read them to you. My vision is helping girls and young women feel empowered, strong, and confident. My fashion design perspective is creating wardrobe looks that help her look great and feel great about her own unique body. And then this one in particular, I prioritize less waste, more mindful sourcing, fair wage, high quality design. Buy less, wear more. And that runs with the theme of raising your vibration, higher consciousness, more mindful approach to living, which is what spirituality is all about. So welcome, Joy.
Thank you.
And of course, I'm wearing one of Joy's designs, and she is wearing her own designs, just to give you a little more taste of what Joy has to offer.
I'm more comfortable right now.
Yeah, Joy's clothes are comfortable yet fantastically fashionable. I still have that black suit that I bought, I believe your first season in 2007.
Oh my gosh.
I still have that. It is classic, timeless, yet very chic.
Yeah.
Still, after all these years. So, Joy, tell us a little bit about your background of your life, of your time in fashion, and your own spiritual journey background.
Well, background-wise, I was born here in the United States. My parents are both immigrants from China. And grew up in a pretty nerdy family. Didn't prioritize fashion or anything like that. But I think because my mother is bipolar, and so I grew up with that. So my creative escape was always drawing and creating beautiful things on graph paper with pencils my dad brought home from his office. We didn't, have money to spend on all these really cool tools, so you just use what you had, and that's what I did. And then I just that was my happy place. So even in school, I'd always go to the art room. I'd spend extra time there, and it was a creative outlet for me, and an emotional outlet too, really. I'm fortunate to have a sister who I'm very, very close with, 2 years younger, and a brother that's 8 years younger. And we just kind of lived in urban, suburban America. And when I really wanted to go to school for design, well, I really didn't want to go to school to begin with. I just wanted to go party like, there's no tomorrow in the 80s.
Right.
I was kind of dating myself. But I didn't even tell my dad that I wanted to go work in fashion, because he would have absolutely disowned me, because he said I was exploiting labor. You can't do that. So I never told him. I applied to an ad in the New York Times who was looking for a fit model. I was like, what is a fit model? But I'm looking at these measurements going, oh, I think that could be me. And I was living in Connecticut, took the train into Manhattan, got the job on the spot, $16,000 a year. I can't do that. I can't pay my bills. I can't. So anyway, went back and forth, but I ended up working something out, and that's how I started in the fashion business, because I felt like, okay, this is going back a little bit. Second grade, maybe it was third grade, but we were standing in line to go to class, and I just remember this girl in front of me, her name was Mary Beth, and she just kept letting all the other people in front of her, and that put me at the end of the line, farther and farther back. Well, it made me cry. I felt bad about myself. And I was just, to this day, I just never want a person, especially a girl, I'm a girl, right? Them, whatever, to feel like that. So I think that kind of fuels what I do now. And from a spiritual standpoint, I think it's really important because it's not just a tool, but it's who you are. It's intuitive. It's where things should come from your heart. That gives its meaning, and that's what matters in this world that we're living in now, to make a difference, to make it better, to go Kaizen, which means making things better.
Going from within and expressing it outwardly.
Yes, and you have outside influences,
Sure.
and you observe what's on the outside, but what you can do is I collect, kind of marinate, incubate, and then what is it that you can take from your inside to put out there that's going to make it better.
Wow. Okay, so what is your practice? What's your current practice?
Spiritual practice?
Because this plays into, I imagine this is what fuels your creative process.
It does, and it helps me manage my emotional ups and downs. I call them Picasso blues.
Who has that?
Whether
Picasso blues, that's good.
Oh, totally Picasso
I remember
blues.
that.
And that's happened to me, hard hit, not only for everyone during the pandemic, but, I lost my parents, and my business changed, perspectives have changed on life and what you do with the time that you have in your life.
There's a lot of loss in general people have been experiencing through this.
Yeah, and to understand that, and no one, you can't Google, what do you do when you just feel like shit, you feel crappy, you don't feel good about yourself, you can't get yourself out of it.
Right.
So I think, and I always kind of wondered, well, how come when my mom and dad pass that, in your head, in your consciousness, that doesn't go away. My father was a physicist, so he said, we're just all energy. So energy just passes. You don't get rid of energy. Right. So that being the case, then you don't just disappear. So that just kind of, set that in the back. Then, with all this happening, it really kind of led me to how can I manage this? What are my tools? And I don't want to take medication. I'm I don't even want to take aspirin. Yeah. So I got a book about, daily reading, journaling, creative art therapy, which I didn't know existed because I couldn't say the words. I couldn't write them down, but I could draw them in my book, how I felt. And in a way, that was really a great release of just anger or emotional distress. So now I find that even when I started meditation. Okay, so here's a great story. Okay, so when I was at Liz Claiborne, the president of the company, I was like, oh my God, he's so nice, he's so fair. And I was just a plebeian fit model. So anyway, long story short, years later, I contacted him and I just said, I just want to tell you how much I appreciated, my first job in the fashion business with you. And we actually got to meet on Zoom.
Oh, nice.
And he met me. And I also met him when I was in New York. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a mentor who talked to me. And I thought he was giving me all this great business advice. And he told me Insight Timer, meditation.
Okay. That was your first introduction to Insight Timer.
That was my first introduction.
That's an app.
It's an app, right. It's like Calm and Headspace. Right. And so I'm like, what? And I actually had that, but I didn't get to it for a few months. It was amazing.
That's what changed. That was your tipping point in terms of your practice, elevating it.
It was my tipping point. Yeah. Yes, it was, because I couldn't even listen to myself because I had all this chatter in my head, all the things that you're supposed to do. Your dad says you're supposed to do. Your friends think that you should do. When I got married, what a husband thinks you should do. I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe that plays the role, right, but it doesn't feel right to me. So I really had to learn to listen to myself. And I think with a spiritual practice, you can tap into that deeper and deeper. It's much more. It's your friend. It's your buddy. It's you.
It is. That's a good way to put it. And I was just thinking when you said that about what other people want, etc. Joy and I have some similarities in terms of being children of immigrants, and I don't know about the Chinese culture, but the Middle Eastern culture, women don't have much of a voice in the very traditional sense. And so my practice has allowed me to find mine and express it with more confidence and less fear.
Yeah.
And is your situation similar?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my practice has done a lot for me. In fact, there's even some binaural beats that work on your throat chakra that help you heal your fears of doing that. And there's tools like that for some of those concerns that you might have.
I love the sound therapy.
Okay, let's talk about, we're going to switch gears a little bit because we want to now start weaving this together with fashion. Let's talk about the history of the function of fashion. To dress, to self-express, not just to cover our bodies, but and sometimes for external validation. We all like that sometimes. To express ourselves, to express our creativity, to express our mood. What else?
I really think that fashion needs to be redefined. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many different definitions of fashion. I mean, people go, "Oh, I love Project Runway," and all this. And I think it's great, but you know what? If fashion to me is like different. I mean, I think I wanted to be there. I mean, creative problem solving. That's what I went to school for, is design. And design is, you make things not just beautiful, but if you look out in nature, if you go for a walk, it is beautiful. There's so much inspiration and motivation. And that is just trying to take those concepts and those principles of design, weave them into different things in your life. It could be a floral arrangement. It could be the dinner plate. It could be the way you dress. But to give someone like joy, make them feel good about themselves, or help them find their inner joy and bring that out. So it's kind of like you're a conduit, if you will. Yeah.
One of the things that Joy, I know, incorporates in her designs are little nuances here and there to, I don't know what the word you want to use. We all have something in our body that we don't seem to like, even though other people think we are perfect as we are. And so your clothes are designed to help everyone feel comfortable in what they're wearing.
Yeah.
They're designed that way. They're stitched that way. It's stitching. I know you do some creative stitching with some things like that. So it's so many people can wear her designs. You don't have to be a certain body type.
No.
And in my opinion, that's part of elevating the level of fashion and the frequency of fashion. Mm-hmm. As well as we were talking earlier, and in your vision, your mission, the good practices.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You want to talk a little bit more about that?
So I think being educated about what the fashion area is, I was able to go to the different factories across, different areas where Liz Claiborne was doing their production. And it was really eye-opening. I mean, you think that, you have it bad. You got to really see other girls that look just like you, that are your age or younger, that share a bedroom with a bunk bed, only have room for a fish as a pet, share a bathroom down the hall, have their utensils for their food out on the side of the factory wall. I mean, and they're not even paid enough to be able to go home.
They are part of the factory.
They are part of the factory. So I thought, you know what? If I can make a difference one day, take everything that I'm learning and I'm seeing, and make it fair, and give people opportunity, to have jobs. Take what conceptually to, like you say, stitching. I mean, it's not just stitching to be pretty, but stitching to maybe it's reinforcement.
To be functional.
It's everything you do should be functional, right? But function doesn't need to be crazy, ostentatious, entitled. It can be absolutely functional, beautiful, accessible. Accessible is also really key, right? How do you make it? What's fair? When you say accessible, is it $50 or $500? Am I going to wear it 10 times and travel, or am I going to wear it once to the gala and that's it? I mean, there's different things. So fashion has a lot of different meanings and definitions for a lot of different people, depending on what your lifestyle is.
I don't know if you can answer this, Joy, but is there a way to know where the clothes you are buying, what conditions they are being made in? Is there a way to know that? Or is that tough?
It's tough because some people will, if you have the money in a bigger company, you can always let people just tell the story that you want the consumer to hear. That's not always going to be backed up by what they do. And even if we say we want to buy American and support America and American jobs, you have to understand then, or be mindful that it's only fair to pay that woman, that man, whoever it is, a decent wage.
It's going to cost more.
It's going to cost more.
But there's a reason behind it.
There is a reason behind that.
Yeah, so Europe clothing is made here.
Yeah, I wanted to support women in business, one. I wanted to work with women who, they're just really amazing women. You're an amazing woman.
Wrote about it in your vision that I read. Helping them feel empowered and strong as well. And you do mindful sourcing.
And so when I say empowered, I mean it's not that I'm going to empower you, but whatever little bit I can do.
Right.
If you have to get in front of a camera and do a video, what's the best look that's going to come across that people will say, I get it. She's confident. I mean, you're projecting how you feel.
Like I said at the beginning of the show, when you're wearing that outfit you love the most, how you feel in that. Yep. You are giving people the opportunity to find that and tap into that feeling.
Yes.
And when you're higher vibe, you can be more expressive. You can be more of service. You are more guided in each moment, and you have an impact. You have more positive impact on the people around you. I know that might sound really silly, but it's true. Put that shirt on that I'm talking about and you will see how you are and how people around you react and respond.
Absolutely. I mean, I hate to say, but we're in a society where visually the judgment calls, like before you even say anything, like you're like looking at you, but if I was here with a hoodie, I'd be a totally different character than I was here in my little pink bunny pajamas, but you guys don't see it, or fluffy socks that I'm like super comfortable in. I'm on a Zoom call, but that says something different than being in combat boots with the jacket or a shirting. It's just different things. I mean, but everybody's different. You feel different at different times.
Well, and you mentioned earlier it's time to redefine fashion.
Yeah.
We were talking about the fact that there's a new trend in fashion of using recycled thread. I have a Say sweater that I bought this past season. It says on the label, made from recycled fabric. I saw a Prada bag that said repurposed material. And a lot of other companies are doing that, and they're advertising for it. Doesn't mean they're charging less for it, but they're advertising for it, and they're doing this. And I think that's a responsible energy to infuse.
So, just a little story. So, when I was going through a pretty rough time when I just felt angry, confused, like I was kind of all over the place. And this is kind of when my business was kind of taking a different turn for various reasons. But the outlet for me, and I didn't understand it at the time, was upcycling vintage military materials. Now, I've been collecting that for a long time, for whatever reason. I just think it's really cool. Like this bag, is from the Vietnam War, but it was a duffel bag. And so it's got all the original hardware, and it's really rough on the outside, but on the inside, I lined it with a beautiful red, pretty silk brocade. Feminine, soft. And I don't know why I did that, but now when I look back, and it's really interesting because then you just say, what's your intuitive subconscious or, inner self projecting here? It's a way to cope and a way to heal, and also a way to manifest, what you want to have.
It just boosts you up.
It boosts you up. It makes you feel better. I can sleep better at night.
We were just talking, me and you and Gabby, my very talented videographer, we're talking about how when we wear schleppy clothes for a few days in a row because we're home working or something where we're not really seeing people, after a few days of that, it really affects our mood.
Yes, it does.
Not that there's anything wrong with schleppy clothes, but you feel a certain way when you're wearing something specific for yourself, and it can definitely impact your mood. It can definitely impact your mood.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about one more thing before we wrap up. We were talking about some new things you were doing, and virtual design. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, it's augmented or virtual design. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that. Because it seems, from what I understand, you're saying that you're going to explain it. It makes clothing, fashion design more accessible to people, which raises the vibration of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, so there's all this talk about the metaverse right now. And what is this? So the more I dove into it, I understand that there's a real problem right now especially with the pandemic, but a lot of young people are really struggling emotionally, and they're sad.
So.
they haven't had in contact, they haven't been able to have a prom or experiences or, just graduation, things like that. When I had interns working with me, I was like, oh my gosh, you're not going to have graduation. You worked so hard on this. So what the Metaverse is being able to offer experiences for those who are maybe won't have the opportunity to have the money, the opportunity, the time, whatever it is, to experience different things. And what this does is it creates opportunity virtually. Let's say you don't have $500 to spend on a garment, but I have $50 to spend on a garment in the virtual world, or I have $5 to wear a garment that I can go gaming in, or I can go visit my friends for a concert,
So can they actually purchase it this way, or this is for them to have the experience of wearing this garment that they enjoy?
Both. Okay. So you're not wasting because you're not actually, producing and then throwing it away in landfills and burning it up.
You're producing it as it's needed,
right,
on demand.
Right. But you actually can go and buy it virtually, wear it virtually, go experience things virtually, and never waste anything but the clicking and the creating online. And I'm not saying it replaces a realistic experience, because the real world is very important.
I love to go to a store and look at the stuff. I'm not good at shopping online. I get too overwhelmed with everything. I want to touch it and feel it and see it and smell it.
And when you and I get together, what are you doing? Where are you going? Let's do this. Let's try this. You can feel it. You can see the colors. You can see the shade of the colors.
Yes, no, love that. Get this off me.
Right.
Immediately.
Right. And guess what? If I can't afford to do that, to go into a shop, time-wise or money-wise, maybe I could do that online
and have that experience. Accessible for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's cool.
Yes.
So this is the wave of the future, do you think?
I absolutely think it's the way of the future. So, in addition to being able to do this, like I love draping and feeling and touching and seeing and creating things. I also want to be able to do that online with the way things are going, that, maybe we can, not everyone can get here and, I can spend 2 hours with them, but if I can get online and do that with people from all over, how great would that be?
Yeah, it would open up your world. Yeah. I'm a firm believer of conscious capitalism, which means it's good for everyone. It's good for the owner, the employees, the communities. Yeah. It's elevated business, and I believe that's always been your approach.
Absolutely.
So do you have a final, I'm throwing this at you. I didn't tell you I was going to do this, do I?
Oh gosh.
But do you have something you'd like to leave everyone with? A joyism or a thought or something that just works really well for you that you'd like to share or reiterate?
Well, I really like the quote from Marcus Aurelius.
Okay, which one?
Which is, the things you think about determine the quality of your mind, and your perception creates that reality.
Nice.
And so, the reason why I like that is there's a lot of stuff going on, and, you can get really down on it, but if you look at it and you just not turn it around, but really understand, what is it beyond what you're actually seeing, before you have that experience of whether it's being sad, mad, glad, controversial. I'm not saying be happy-go-lucky all the time, but take it from a positive, right, but from a positive perspective, and be real about it, and not be afraid of trying new things.
And speaking your truth.
And not be afraid to try something new, and that does kind of like a physical validation, like, oh, this can really happen. So emotionally, same thing. Oh, I can steer my thoughts and be creative and design again, because I never thought, God, will I be able to ever do that again? Because you're not feeling that. But you can, you come out. Colors. I'm not going like dark, but maybe it's light yellow. Maybe it's radiant silver. Pink can go from pink here to bubblegum pink, all the way up to like fluorescent pink, fuchsia pink. Then you go to the side and go into dusty pink. So every variation, I think, reflects an emotion and also projects what you're feeling. And I think if you're going really bright fuchsia, you see a lot of bright pinks and really intense pinks, that it's about like, okay, I just want to have fun. I want to be happy. I want to smile. I want it, and I want it to be solid. And I can go into like a whole breakdown of scientific color, but basic color is a hue.
Right.
And with the hue of color, you have saturation, which is how deep it goes. and you have the value of a color, and that is determined by how much black you put in the color, how much white you put in the color. That makes it dusty, that makes it deep, that defines color. So I mean, there's a whole science to that, but absolutely emotionally it has everything to do with the way you feel and how you project. But that's all part of fashion. So fashion is color, fabrication, cut, how you feel, what you're projecting. Are you wearing a collar, or are you wearing a nice v-neck? Are you wearing a low slung off your shoulder, 80s Madonna? I mean, it's all different kinds, you know.
And where it's being made and what conditions it's being made under, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely, conditions that it's made under. That's so important to me. I would never sacrifice bringing down the cost of something just because I want to get it done cheaper. And, you know, these people, these kids, young kids, they can't even get out of the factory if the fire takes place. I mean, we've seen that in the news, right? I'm not surprised, and that's happening all over. So yeah, it's a problem, and I'm glad it's getting addressed. Good. Because you shouldn't make things, and just because they don't sell, you want to save your name, throw it in a landfill, burn it up. I mean, what's the point? That's why I'm talking about sustainability.
Such a huge cost too.
Huge
human
cost.
Huge human cost.
Huge human cost, and that should just. If we can do something about it, because we're aware now, we're much more mindful of how we do things, who we do things with, the process of how it's done. We can all do that. And it's like, to me, I don't mean to be rambling, but it's kind of like, I always think about it like an orchestra. If you're the conductor and you find people that are, you know, amazing, they're really in touch with their spirituality through meditation, through yoga, through whatever, it's all different parts of the orchestra, that the way it can really be so effective is not that they're not amazing on their own, but you bring them all together and it's like you create masterpiece.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts in that
yes
dynamic. Yeah.
Yes, so there's so many different factors. Ready?
So let's tell you all how to find Joy. Joy has her current designs that are available on her website, joyli.net. That's JOYLI.net. Do you have an Instagram?
Designer Joy Lee. I'm going to get back on.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.